Hello, good morning. I am going to present you my video number 3 from my lesson plan number 3. In the informative data, the school name, it does not apply. The theme for this lesson, position of adverbs of frequency. The date, November 9, 2020. The grade, first baccalaureate. Class length, 45 minutes. Proficiency level, elementary A2.2, CEFR. The lesson plan designer, Laura Salazar, that is me. For the TEFL objectives, by the end of this lesson, the students will be able to, for listening, identify and follow instructions as well as listening to their partner questions. For speaking, compare, ask, and answer their own questions. For reading, read and understand a script to complete the information missing. For writing, construct their own questions about specific times and writing short answers. The methods that I use: audiolingual method, total physical response, direct method, task-based language learning. The strategies that I use for this lesson: set realistic expectation and goals, visual and manipulatives, speak slowly, use differentiation, whole class work, pair work, and individual work. In the anticipatory set, teacher talks about Stephen King's daily routine. He's a best-selling thriller writer. Teacher tells students Stephen King's morning routine and how is his writing routine. So students already know Stephen King because they already read about something about him and also some of his books. So they're a little bit familiarized with he. And now they are learning a little bit more about his daily routine and especially for his writing routine. In the main teaching input, for the warm-up activity, teacher tells the student 5 sentences about her daily routines without saying the thing it is. And students need to guess what it is. So, for example, the teacher will say, I usually do this in the bathroom. So students need to guess what activity is that the teacher is talking about. Okay, so for example, I usually do this in the kitchen, and they need to guess what is the activity. Then teacher shows the student how adverbs of frequency work. Teacher writes the sentence on the board. So she writes, for lunch, the family, the gap in there, it's together. The teacher will elicit the missing word always first and then never. So for example, for that sentence, for lunch, the family always eats together. And then the teacher will elicit, for lunch, the family never eats together. That way, she is modeling how the adverbs of frequency work. Then the teacher draws a timeline on the board and shows the student that never is on the right end of the timeline here, on the right, and always is at the beginning of the timeline here in the left beginning, okay, in the left. So she draws that and asks students to draw a timeline on their notebooks and to put the other adverbs of frequency in the correct place in the timeline. So they need to put in order the words usually, often, and sometimes. So they put them in order, and when they finish that in their notebook, teacher checks answer by asking students to come up to the board and write the adverbs of frequency in the timeline. So for example, she's going to ask someone for usually, someone for often, and some other student for sometimes. And then she's going to explain that timeline. Then the teacher gives the students a reading worksheet that you have here on the right, so they can underline more adverbs of frequency. So they need to search for adverbs of frequency and underline. When they finish underline that thing, the teacher will check the answers as a class. But while they're doing this worksheet, teacher will walk around checking students' understanding and assisting students where necessary. When they finish this, the teacher tells students to read the text again in detail and then decide if the sentences are true or false. Teacher tells students to correct the false sentences. So in the same worksheet, in the second part they have in here, they are going to put if the sentences are true or false, and they have to correct the false ones. Teacher and students check the answer together. Teacher gives the students a worksheet to complete. Is a worksheet about position of adverbs of frequency. So in the first part, they need to put the adverb in brackets in the correct places in each sentence. Use them in the order given. So they have here, they need to see what is missing in here, and they need to put it in the correct place. For the second part, put the words in the correct order to make questions. So at the beginning, they have different words that they need to put in order and to form questions. Teacher walks around checking students' understanding and assisting students when necessary. Teacher and students check the answers, asking students to explain their answers. Teacher gives example sentences about her daily routine. So for example, she said, I usually get up at 7 o'clock, and she lists different example sentences about, in this case, my daily routine. Then teacher asks students to write sentences about their daily routines. They already see some example sentences that the teacher gave, so now it's their turn to write their own sentences about their daily routines. Teacher monitor and help students with vocabulary whenever they need. Teacher puts students into pairs. Students need to talk about the things they do, about their daily routine. Teacher walks around monitoring correct position of adverbs of frequency. So the teacher will let students to have a nice conversation, practice their fluency, but she is going to stop them if she sees that they are not using the correct position of adverbs of frequency. Teacher and students conclude the class by reviewing the topic briefly. For the modeling, the examples teacher gives at the beginning of the class and the answers to the exercise will provide students with clear contextualized models, which will show students correct form and examples of use in context. So the teacher will always model the correct answers and explaining why those are the correct answers. For the guided practice, the students put in the correct place in the timeline the adverbs of frequency. Students underline adverbs of frequency using the reading. Students read the text in detail and decide if the sentences are true or false and correct the false ones. Students complete a worksheet of position of adverbs of frequency, where students need to complete the sentences with the correct adverbs, put the words in the correct order to make questions. For all of these guided activities, teachers always walk around the class to monitor. At the end of each activity, they check the answers with the whole group. For the independent practice, students write sentences about their daily routines. The sentences should include adverbs of frequency. And then in pairs, students need to talk about the things they do in their daily routine. For the assessment, teacher asks students, how often do you? Questions. Students need to answer using adverbs of frequency. Students raise their hand to participate. So in this part, in the assessment, when the teacher asks, how often do you, for example, wake up at 7 o'clock, she is going to see if really students understood the topic, the lesson, or not. So she's going to ask for each single student in the class to see if they understood or not. For the closer review and follow-up, the class will be concluded by reviewing the topic briefly. If they have some questions, they can ask questions. If they have any doubts, the teacher is there to tell them and see their doubts. For homework, the students need to write 5 clues of their daily routine using adverbs of frequency. And that will be all for this lesson. Thank you very much.